My name is Ben Enos, and I'm the Senior Director of Product Design at the Escape Game. Early on in the early days of the Escape Game, I played the Escape Game as a customer, and I fell in love with it. Absolutely loved everything about it and had to have more. So I played a bunch more games, got to know the owners, and eventually started working at the Escape Game. 7 years ago, basically started there as the person that calibrated the games across the country, which at the time we had 5 locations, so I was making sure that all the games played the same in every location. And now I oversee the game design team, and so we design experiences from our portfolio Escape games to new projects like Great Big Game Show. Early on, it was about how do we create these puzzles that are intuitive? And now it's about how we create these puzzles that really fit the environment, that tell the story that our guests are playing, that really emphasize the theme that they're going through. So the concept of immersive to me is allowing guests to escape their reality for an hour. They can step into any of our rooms and they can feel like they're in the woods in Northern California trying to find Clyde Hamilton's gold. They're not thinking about anything else. They're not thinking about their taxes or their commute to work or anything like that. They are in the moment enjoying everything, and that's true immersion to me. Storytelling is really one of the core elements of an escape game that you have to have. It guides everything in an experience, and without it, it's a room full of puzzles. One of the games where story really enhanced the experience was in a game called Storyteller's Secret in Boston, which was a fantastic game that wound several books, and I say books in quotations because of the puzzles and the set dressing, but several books into this overall narrative of this storyteller, and it just culminated so magically and pulled everything together. It was just a perfect experience. A lot of our puzzles, we take inspiration from everything around us, from video games we've played, from movies we've seen. I remember sitting in the airport with my wife and seeing a light fixture and turning that into a puzzle. So we take, general mechanics and aesthetics of things in the real world, and we blend them into our experiences and into the worlds that we create. Our creative process is based on iteration. We are constantly iterating and testing and going back to the drawing board and just trying everything we can until it suddenly clicks. And we know it when it clicks, when gameplay clicks, when the flow clicks, when the puzzles click. We just know it. And a lot of that's through testing. So we're often bringing a variety of different test groups in to play individual puzzles and our overall experience to make sure that we calibrate everything exactly where we want it to be. In escape rooms, the balance of challenge and fun is always hard. Escape rooms are meant to be challenging, but they're also meant to be really fun. And it's more important to have fun than have challenge. But if it's too easy, then you don't have fun. And so we often talk about something called good struggle and bad struggle. And good struggle is that sweet spot of there's just enough challenge for someone to interact with it a little bit and feel challenged and have that aha moment or have that light bulb moment that goes off and solve that challenge. Bad struggle is when you push beyond that, when someone gets frustrated because they've spent 10 minutes trying to figure out a logic puzzle or something like that. And so we're often calibrating and testing and bringing players in just to make sure that we're hitting that good challenge window. Our mission of the Escape Game is to design and deliver epic interactive experiences for every single guest. And we really take that to heart. And it is a challenge. It's a huge challenge to design for an enthusiast who's played 500, 600, 700 games versus a family of 4 who's never played an escape game before. We create puzzles that can be played by enthusiasts and enjoyed by enthusiasts, and maybe they're going to finish them in 4 minutes, or played by a first-time player, and maybe they're going to finish in 8. We want to keep that window really narrow. So we don't want a puzzle that for a first-timer would take 20 minutes. We want it to take a much smaller amount of time so that there's not a big gap between enthusiast and first-timer. We calibrate the games throughout the entire design, build, and launch process. And we test with a number of groups, and we make sure that we're hitting both groups. It's really important to us to make sure that all of our props fit within the story. So we're always going back to that tenet of game design of story. And so we're making sure that a steampunk prop isn't in a Cambodian jungle. It just doesn't make sense. So we continuously build the world, and all of the clues within the world are reinforcing that story and even furthering the narrative in that experience. Technology is huge. We've had so many advancements in technology that have pushed our experiences forward. Our games are continuously evolving in their use of technology. The important thing in our games, though, is to keep that technology hidden. We want it to feel natural to players so that the things that they're doing in a Cambodian jungle don't feel like technology. It feels like the temple that's been there for 500 years. There's a few technologies that really enhance what we do. One is PLCs. PLCs basically run the logic of our entire experience, and so they're tied into so many different systems, but they're kind of the core, the brain of what we're doing. Additionally, pneumatics have been huge. LEDs. We use a variety of LEDs, and they can work in so many different ways, from a flame effect in a temple to an indicator light on a submarine to whatever you really want them to work as. And then beyond that, just computers in general. We can use projection, we can use AR, we can use VR, we can use all these different technologies as they emerge to continue enhancing the player immersion. We're getting games that are higher quality. They feel like you're actually there versus, older escape rooms that are just like, you're in a drywall room with some boxes. We're really pushing the boundaries there as an industry. The other is games that can be replayed. There's a couple of games, one on each coast actually. The Ladder that's coming out soon from the guys at Hatch Escape is going to be amazing. It's a huge game that's going to have multiple replay options. And then on the other coast, you've got Doors of Divergence that is also fully replayable and a little bit more narratively driven, has some great interactions in it. Our goal with puzzles is to really force players to collaborate. And escape games generally have a little bit of inherent collaboration nature, but then we have some tools that we use to push that even further. And one is layout. If we put two parts of a puzzle in two separate places, you're pushing players to communicate. You can divide that even further. You could have 4 or 8 different places, and you could have one person run around the room and solve it, but it's a lot better if all 8 of you are communicating. Another one is puzzles themselves. So sometimes puzzles need to be viewed from different angles or different thought processes, so they have to work together to solve them. We have a puzzle that we did in a activation for Hulu for their Only Murders in the Building show. And basically what we did is we converted one of our games to their theme and made completely new content. And in that, we had a canvas on the ground. It was just kind of balled up, and you had to roll it out on the ground. And then you had to put paintbrushes on it based on paint splotches. Well, when we started testing, we found out that people were flipping it over and putting it on the wrong side. And it's such a simple problem, and we're giving a hint every time. We're saying, hey, try flipping it over. Well, instead what we did was we took painter's tape and put it on the floor, and we put it on the top of the canvas, and we kind of tore it so that those corners of the canvas match the painter's tape on the floor. So every time from that point forward, players were putting it up right side up. At the escape game, my personal favorite is Gold Rush. It's one of those games, first of all, it's beautiful. You walk in and you're in this trail. It's kind of dusk. You've got trees and foliage, and you've got a cabin that's warmly lit. And you basically progress from the forest into a cabin. You go down a slide into a gold mine. And so it's just, the environments are beautiful, but then the gameplay is amazing because you basically go from easy puzzles to basically learn how to play the escape game. And then you play a little bit harder puzzles, and they get progressively harder as you complete the game. So for newbies, it's a perfect game because they're progressing through difficulty as they progress through the game, and they're learning to play an escape game as they play an escape game. Outside of the escape game, my personal favorite game is Edison at Palace Games. It is obviously Thomas Edison themed. Everything is in that period, and so your intro, rather than a video like most escape games do, is actually played on like this copper disc. It's a real copper disc that they had made for this game. And so from there and then throughout the rest of the game, everything is just incredibly immersive, but it's also one of the most technologically advanced games I've ever seen because the floor has sensors. Every tile has a sensor in it. And so typical game guiding, you're watching on cameras, not there. They're watching on a computer that sees where every player is based on this grid of squares on the floor. And then later, those squares light up and you use those as a puzzle. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is experience as much as you can. Go do other activations, go do other immersive experiences, go see everything, but also, take the world around you in. Take inspiration from your life, from your family. One of my favorite puzzles that I've made is one that was basically made from my kids' toys. They had these letters that have patterns on them, and I turned that into a puzzle for a Rugrats themed game. And so take inspiration from everywhere and have fun while you're doing it. We're experienced designers. It should be fun.